Welcome to Housing Developments.
I'm Jim Tobin.
And I'm Paul Lopez.
Good morning.
Hello.
Snowy DC.
Yeah, so recovering from the snowfall.
Yeah. It was actually a pretty good storm.
Yeah.
Heavy, but and snowman makingable is whatever the right word is. It was good. But largely the streets are clean and everybody's back at work today, so it's good.
Amen.
Yeah.
Big shout out to our sponsor, first and foremost, LG Pro Builder.
Let's build a good life together. Thanks to them. Appreciate y'all for being on the podcast with us.
We'll be seeing them shortly in a couple short weeks.
Yeah, really. We're only
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll be heading to Vegas a week from tomorrow. Friday, and looking forward to a great show. It's going to be, it's fantastic.
Do it.
Right?
Go ahead. Do it.
It's going to be a really big show. It's bigger and better and badder than last year. It's
insanely that we're going to surpass last year's number that we are.
Yeah, show's essentially sold out, right?
Yeah. There is still space though, so if people want to come, by all means, do the drive, take the short flight, whatever it takes, because I think we talked about this before. Now more than ever, I think it's going to be very critical to be on the forefront of education, on the forefront of all the stuff that we'll be talking about in politics.
That's right.
And just that networking that I think is more and more becoming vital than ever before.
Yeah, and seeing what all the great products are for 2025 and 2026.
The cool products are always so cool.
It really is going to be. There's over 700 new exhibitors. It's going to be the place to be if you're going to build anything in this country over the next year. This is where you have to be. So
between the two shows, over 100,000 strong. So
yeah, that's right, 100,000 strong, over 1 million square feet, well over 1 million square feet. It's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we've already kind of alluded to this. What are some of the issues going into? Because it'll be fun. Right. There'll be cool stuff, but we'll also be doing a lot of work and kind of have that discussion in regards to how NAHB is affecting the housing industry. What are some of the things that are going to be on top of mind of our members?
Well, yeah, I think immigration, we've talked about this on the podcast. Obviously, we're watching enforcement actions across the country. Many job sites are getting caught up in this. And so
we're starting to hear that more and more, right?
More and more. And so we continue to talk to the administration. Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem recently confirmed just about the impact on the industry. Again, we can keep bouncing off that executive order the president signed about availability and affordability of housing and driving costs down, and how some of the policies are working against it.
Right.
So certainly immigration. We're going to hear a lot about insurance. That was something clear when we did the town halls last week. Insurance is weighing on the minds of all of our members, between all of the natural disasters on each coast, but just the cost of insurance is getting prohibitive. And of course, not often thought of as as an affordability measure when it comes to ownership and rental as well.
Yeah.
It really is becoming part of the equation, and it's just becoming unaffordable.
Yeah, and people always see it as a coast problem, but when you start looking at the river tributaries and when you start seeing some of the flooding that happens, it's literally from end to end of this country.
Yeah, no, that's right. It doesn't matter. There isn't a community that really isn't affected by it. And we're already starting to read stories or hear stories about people that are moving away from disaster-prone areas to areas, so I could see over the next decade, growth is going to happen in the areas that aren't really impacted, whether it's by major rivers or the coast or fire-prone or things like that. I just think that there's going to be a shift, a out-migration from some of these popular areas.
Do you think the industry is ready for that, though, as things start shifting over? At the local level, at the state level, are people ready to see that shift? Because we keep trying to play defense in some of these places that they need to open up land, they need to open up regulations so make it easier for our members to build.
Yeah, if you're a community that is number one, is probably more of your affordable communities already. Yeah, think of Indianapolis, right? That's first comes to mind, or Pittsburgh. Even though there's a lot of rivers in Pittsburgh that tend to be.
There's 3 of them.
There are, right? So I hear. The idea in my mind is that communities need to prepare for this because they're going to get caught off guard by the growth, whether it's in housing or businesses that want to relocate to purportedly safer areas. And so that's going to be really important for our state and local associations to plan for it and be part of the growth with their local electeds to make sure that we are prepared for it. That said, the areas that are getting hit more and more by these disasters, they're not going to go away. They're not going to become ghost towns, of course not. But what is it going to take to build there now? What are the codes and regulations? Can they build there? That's an excellent point, and that is really going to be an issue I think moving forward, we are going to have serious conversations about where we continue to build and the cost of building there. A lot of, then there, I know we're kind of going down to this jag on insurance, but
Sure.
there are more and more people talking about, we've even talked about a national all hazard or national catastrophic insurance backstop of the federal government. Not really popular given the budget deficits that the government's running.
Right.
But we have to do something to drive down the cost of insurance.
Yeah, and you also talked about building materials. Tariffs have also become
I think that's the other big three.
Right?
And especially with all those product manufacturers in town, I'd be really curious, especially with our leading suppliers council, to listen about the impacts of potential tariffs on Canada or Mexico. Obviously, we've got more tariffs on China, and now we've got steel and aluminum tariffs, or as I like to say, aluminium tariffs. I'm really curious to see the impacts of that on our great suppliers and manufacturers, but ultimately it's going to happen. It's going to fall on the downstream, which is the builders and our customers.
Well, and just to tie everything together, I mean, you're going to be leading a panel, right? Of just that. You're going to have some builders, you're going to have some suppliers, and you're going to try and put all the pieces together to kind of figure out holistically, what does this look like? What's impacting now?
Right.
And more importantly, what's the psyche moving forward? Because as we know, sometimes it's just the perception is a lot in this business,
right,
in terms of what people are willing to do and when how many housing starts they're willing to take on, because who knows if the consumer is wary, then so are the builders.
Exactly. I mean, and if material costs rise, whether it's lumber or steel, aluminum, components from China, it doesn't matter. Everything seems like it's going to go up at some point. In fact, the president today is talking about reciprocal tariffs now. And so, we're going to be in this cycle for a little while until the president is satisfied that these countries are no longer taking advantage of the U.S. or the U.S. industry has been protected enough by these tariffs to actually increase production. But in the short term, there's going to be some pain. The president has said it himself. There's going to be some short-term pain. And where is that ultimately going to get born? I do think it's going to happen on housing. I think it's going to happen on our customers and certainly on builders who maybe aren't prepared for it. They're working under an existing contract and they've got to eat some of those costs.
Right.
But we need to have a holistic conversation. We continue to talk to the White House. We do a lot of press. Tariffs aren't necessarily good for housing. So we're going to keep.
That's an understatement there, Jim.
Yeah, right. And so we need to continue to advocate for housing and make sure we have. I am fearful. We don't talk about this a lot, but countries that have these high tariffs, they're going to find other markets, which means we're going to see a constriction in supply, which means prices go up. Never mind the tariffs; they just go up from lack of supply. So there's a lot of downstream effects here because it will take a while for the domestic industry to ramp up,
Sure.
or if they do at all. I mean, we've talked about this in lumber. The U.S. domestic lumber industry, which U.S. and domestic kind of says it all. Kind of redundant, right? They've had tariff protection for the better part of a decade, and we haven't seen in my mind, any meaningful increase in supply.
Right.
We haven't seen a meaningful increase in their workforce. We still continue to import a third of our lumber from overseas. 85% of that comes from Canada. We need to have a serious conversation about the impacts.
Right. And when we talk, it's also the blame game, right? Well, it's not the lumber, it's the mills, right? Like we have plenty of lumber, but the mills can't.
Right.
So, I mean, this gives me kind of a PTSD moment, even from 10 years ago.
That's right.
When it was all lumber all the time.
Right. And as much as we saw lumber run up to, unsustainable levels, you were in a low interest rate environment at that point. Now you're not. Now you're paying almost 7% for a mortgage.
Yeah.
And everybody, if you're doing a construction to perm where you're paying more money on the front end there, the hard part is now those building material costs are exacerbated by the lending environment.
It compounded,
so it's kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, so this is just some of the few things that we'll be talking about. At this time.
I think IBS obviously is the crown jewel of our year from a leadership perspective, where our leaders will be discussing these issues and our policy response to them. Obviously, Rob Dietz and the economic team will be all over Vegas talking about the economy and where we're headed. But this is a really important part. I mean, a really important time in the housing industry as we kind of chart the course for the next 6 months to a year, because there is so much opportunity ahead of us. Like I said, I feel it's just right there. At good economic growth, if we can just continue to tame inflation, I still stubbornly lower, but high.
Right.
And I don't see, Chair Powell pretty much said, we're in no rush to lower rates. So I think we're going to be in this environment for a little bit. So that's why being in Vegas is so important for us at the National Association to help you plot your course for your business and your customers and the market over the next, like I said, 6 months to a year. I mean, that's what we're excited to do. Part of our knowledge coming up.
Yeah, and it's getting ahead of the curve, right? Like I have a builder, right, who I've used a few times. He's always, what do you think lumber's going to do? What's Deet's saying about this? How's the market? And I'm now the last few months, I'm like, well, go to the builder show and actually find it.
Right.
He's actually going, right? Because
awesome.
Because he sees a business. It makes sense for his business to be ahead of his competitors because he's always like, do I lock in prices now for my materials, what have you? All that stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not Rob Dietz, but come to the show and there we go. So
I'm not Rob Dietz, but I do a podcast.
Yeah, but I do speak for him all the time.
That's right. Right.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on in DC.
Sure.
Truly, as we are recording this podcast, Representative Johnson, Speaker of the House, Johnson, he's got a budget battle going on right now.
He does. He doesn't have a great majority or a great big majority, very, very tiny majority. And he can only afford to lose one vote. There's two that are on the fence, which would, you're not going to get any Democrats. But in order to get to the tax bill and the spending bills that they need to do over the course of this year, they need to pass a budget.
Right.
Not only does the House have to do it, but they need to get it in concert with the Senate.
Yeah.
So there's still a little way to go. If the House can pass their budget today, I think they're off and running. And for us, that means really not only engaging on the spending side, right? There's a lot of programs NHB engages in that we want to make sure that the money continues to flow. But even more so, it's that tax piece. What does the tax bill look like? The extension or permanency of the Trump tax cuts? What happens to the mortgage interest deduction? What happens to the SALT deduction? What happens to all the business deductions that our members enjoy? There's a lot. So it's, if they can get this done today, it's game on.
Right.
And then the president wants this bill done. It's the biggest thing they can do in the short term. And it sets up the rest of his term, I really think, because we're facing this, tax cliff, fiscal, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah.
Tax Mageddon by the end of the year. So they've got to act. So hopefully today they get some clarity on where they're headed, and that's really going to be important.
Because something that's especially those in New York and in some of the blue, high cost blue states, but that have Republican representatives, they're starting to see that the SALT, initiative kind of whittling away, not as much as, Johnson, I think initially had, spoken out about in the beginning. Right. It's giving them a little bit of consternation, right? Yeah.
No, the Ways and Means Chairman, Jason Smith, said, I need $5.5 trillion to spend on taxes or to figure out the tax deal. Anything less than that's going to hurt. He got about $4.5 trillion. And but it's a T, right? So it will be, that's a pretty significant amount of revenue that they're not going to be able to play with, which means they're going to squeeze the balloon somewhere else. And of course, we're always worried about the housing incentives. The president's come out against carried interest, which is something that's really important to our multifamily members. Right. We were able to stave that off, during the first round. We're going to have to work hard there. Low-income housing tax credit needs more credits, needs more funding, needs a little bit of reform and modernization. That's going to be high on our priority list. Obviously, keeping the mortgage interest deduction at $750,000 where it is now, second home deduction.
And the list goes on and on.
So J.P. Delmore and Lake Colson and the whole government affairs team is going to be busy over the next 6 months.
And is all of this to kind of make way for the tax cuts that Trump ultimately wants at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's the pathway to moving it forward.
Right.
Absolutely. Whether it's permanency or whether it's just extending them 5 years or 10 years, this is the gateway to being able to do that. They know they're not going to get any Democratic votes. They don't really want to compromise with the Democrats because they don't like what the Democrats are going to want in the deal.
Right.
So they need to do this themselves. And the way to do that is under a process that protects the budget and these ultimate bills from having to go through the filibuster in the Senate, and they can just pass them on a raw majority vote. But again, John Thune, majority leader in the Senate, has a little bit more room with a 3-vote cushion.
So it's easier for in the Senate?
It is, other than the Senate
being the Senate.
But the House, again, they can only lose 1 vote, and then you got illnesses. You've got anyway. The speaker is dancing on a knife edge. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think it gets passed today?
I do. I think it depends on whether the president calls up some of the folks and says,
Start
look,
cracking the whip.
we need to get going here.
Right.
Not everybody's going to get what they want. The president's not going to get everything he wants. Remember, he wants to do no tax on tips. He's committed to assault relief. So there's things that he wants, and right now Trump is the big dog, obviously. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I think it depends on whether the president wants to weigh in on one big beautiful bill or two little beautiful bills, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody recognizes the president's the one who can always crack the whip, so to speak.
When is this over? Like when do we actually have a budget and it gets signed by the president and we start knowing and having solid
Well, the president
answers?
Doesn't have to sign the budget, right? That's
Right.
It's really a creature of Congress. So it
you're
sets
right.
the appropriations caps. It
Right.
sets the tax policy. Yeah, well, I mean, if the House passes theirs, they got to reconcile it with the Senate. The Senate's on their path as well. Maybe another month before then we're really starting to march forward.
Yeah.
But because the two budgets will pass on their own, and then the committees invariably they've got to go find their savings or craft their bills, and so that will move forward. But then we still have to reconcile it all with the Senate, right? So there's a long way to go, and the Senate's got different ideas, different pressures.
It just seems like right now in DC there's a lot of uncertainty, and budget being one of them. But with this kind of spattering of executive orders over and over again, everyone's kind of trying to catch their breath in some place,
right,
to try and get some normalcy, understand what all of this means, right? So that's why I was asking the question.
It's funny. It's funny because I was watching CNBC or something, and the word uncertainty came up, and one of the anchors quoted or talked about Jay Powell, and Jay Powell said in using the word uncertainty, he said, uncertainty is a good thing because it means you're looking at all of the possibilities out there. If you have certainty, I guarantee you're missing something. So it gave me a different perspective on it. Seems so crazy and chaotic and uncertain, but that's because we are thinking of all the different ways this could go and preparing for them. Mm-hmm. And that's comforting to me that our team is really, on behalf of the members, thinking of all the outcomes. And again, may seem chaotic, but that's okay because certainty may not be a good thing, even though I'm a big believer in deep. But I'm going to give Chair Powell the whole credit for that. But
deep thoughts. By Jim Tobin.
That's right. Well, I think that's what makes our jobs fun.
Right. Speaking of fun, we're gonna have some fun at the show. We're gonna be again broadcasting from the show.
That's right.
So between now and the show, we're going to be going silent.
Right.
We'll be traveling, getting ready for the main event, as we call it.
Yep.
But I'm very excited about this.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I give a quick plug for opening ceremonies Tuesday morning. David Spade will be our keynote, getting ready to kick off the show for us. And then if you're there on Thursday night and you want to come to the closing concert,
you better have tickets.
That's right.
Because we're sold out.
It's going to be great. Chris Jansen, you can buy him a boat and a truck to pull it. And so, it'll be great. Plus, we've got the house party. We've got the YP party. A lot of states are hosting their own receptions and parties as well, and delegations. It's going to be, and we got the PAC event. So if you're a PAC donor, and if you're not a PAC donor, become a PAC donor because Monday night we've got some great events coming up. So
it's a fun mix of business and fun, right?
Yeah, well, it's Vegas.
That's right, baby.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
We'll see the listeners in Las Vegas.
That's right.
We will see you in about an hour because we got a meeting.
That's right. Let's thank our sponsor one more time, LG Pro Builder.
Let's build
a good life together.
Absolutely.
Look forward to seeing you all in Vegas too.
All right. With that,
until next time, I'm Jim Tobin.
And I'm Paul Lopez.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Builders Show Insider. Today I have John McGarry, who's the Senior Vice President of Business Development and Growth Strategy, and Rob Pallas, a Manager in Exposition Sales, which is booth sales at the Builder Show.
Thanks, Denise.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
This podcast just talks about different things at the show that people might not be aware of. Yeah. To give them an idea of what they might want to plan to attend when they're visiting the show. So we thought it might be interesting to talk about the Startup Zone. Yeah. And I know you were very instrumental in starting the Startup Zone. So can you kind of talk a little bit about the history of it, where the idea came from, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So if you remember 4 years ago, we kind of looked at the show and we tried to bring in some improvements that would bring more attendees, improve attendee satisfaction and exhibitor satisfaction. So Actually, the two started at the same time, the new product zone and the startup zone. So really what we created is a place where attendees and exhibitors can take part in introducing transformative new products for the industry, and attendees can come see them and evaluate them. So that's the broad stroke of it. But yeah.
The companies within the startup zone, they're brand new baby companies, right?
Yeah.
They're new ideas.
Yep.
And what does the startup zone look like? They're different than the regular exhibits. So if someone's visiting, what are they actually seeing?
Yeah, they're coming up to a kiosk. So these companies are brand new companies, as you just said. So they don't have a lot of money. They're getting VC, venture capital funds to be at the show. So what we do is we make it convenient for them. It's all turnkey. So it's a really nice kiosk with the screen where they can, view the product. They can have a video or a PowerPoint. And it's really meant for them not to bring the physical product, but to talk about the product. Right. And they're all kind of bunched together. So attendees can, bounce from one to the other and find out what those new and innovative products are entering the industry.
Okay. And how do you decide which products are part of it? I think you're now working on this, right? So I know John and I used to work very closely together, and I remember when this started. And so you got the first couple of years accomplished, right?
Yep.
Now it's part of Expo Sales. So
That's
now
correct.
you're kind of heading this. So how do you end up with the companies that are there? How do you find these companies?
The way we find companies is we find them through our website and marketing efforts, word of mouth. But the main way we find them is we have an advisory team. It's
Oh, that's
composed
cool.
of 7 building industry professionals. Some are venture capitalists, others have worked in startups, others work for large builders doing product and technology acquisition. So they're always looking for new ideas. So we meet every 2 weeks during the year, and they recruit companies from their circle, and the companies then have to apply to the startup zone. And if the advisory team deems them worthy, we approve them and then make them an offer to come exhibit.
That's really neat.
Rob, how many applications do you get a year? A fair amount of people apply for it, right?
I'd say we had about 60 this year.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And
And,
how many end up exhibiting?
We have 19 exhibitors.
Wow. So that
currently.
is
So it's
stiff
pretty
competition.
selective, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So,
And I've heard, I am ashamed to admit, I've never been to the startup zone. I mean, I've been past the startup zone, but I think there's something where they pitch their product or something. What am I talking about? I just know I've heard of this.
it is. It's called the pitch session.
Okay.
The advisory team has selected 10 of the startups that are in the startup zone, and they will be presenting at the show at 3:30 p.m. in the West Hall, room 307.
What day is that?
That's Tuesday, February
Tuesday.
25th.
Okay, first day of the show.
Yep. Each company gets 4 minutes to present, and we've opened it up to all attendees, not just education pass holders. So expect
So
it to
anybody
be a full
can-
house. Yeah.
Okay. And then is there a winner of the pitch competition?
There will be a winner. The
Okay.
advisory team will select a winner and announce it at the pitch session. So they're chomping at the bit to find out
Yeah, that's cool.
which of them.
And I think
Is
they
that-
win Miss Builder Show. No, they win most innovative startup. Is that right? Is that
Yeah,
what the?
I believe that's part of it. But
Okay.
there's a winner, and then are there 2 runner-ups, something like that?
That's really cool. Yeah. And I know we kind of talked about this earlier. The whole
Yeah.
push that we always say all homes start here,
Yep.
right? Because no matter what
Mhm.
part of the industry you're in, you're represented at the Builder Show. But I think we consciously have tried to kind of pull the innovation together so
Mhm.
it's easier for people to see. Now we realize most of our exhibitors are showing something innovative. The
Mhm.
education's innovative,
Yep. but
but these specific areas on the floor are kind of showcasing that and making it easier for attendees
Absolutely.
to see, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think would be good for people to understand about the startup zone? Or do you feel like that's
The startup zone consists of new companies.
Mhm.
They're not old companies that are bringing out new products, but they're generally brand new. Most of them are less than 3 years old,
mm-hmm.
and they are just trying to break into the market with their product or idea.
Right.
So it's not something you can go around and see at other booths.
Right.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, what's exciting about it is some of these companies are presenting this new idea, product, or service for the first time
That's really
at the
cool.
Builder Show. So you'll see it at the first time, right, at our
Yeah.
show. So that's really kind of cool.
And what hall is this in?
It's in the West Hall, room
Okay.
booth W4355.
Okay.
It's in the business management and professional services section of the show.
Okay. I'm going to be sure to stop by. And I know from looking at some of the photos, I mean, in some cases, they don't even have a product at all. So I realize they're not bringing the product, but they're even like, this is what the product would be once we develop it. So yeah, that sounds like a really cool place if you want to see what's next.
Maybe suggest coming by for the happy hour. That would be a very
I didn't know there was a
convenient time
happy
to
hour.
come.
That's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
important for people to know.
That is Wednesday, the 26th at, I believe it's at 4:30
Okay.
in the startup zone.
All right. We'll be sure to put that. We send out an email to everyone every day of the show.
Great.
Don't miss things. So we'll be sure to include those for Tuesday and
That would be
Wednesday.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the other thing you kind of mentioned was the new product zone,
Yeah.
which is different than the startup zone. Again, startup zone, brand new, infancy products. And the new product zone is what?
It's for existing companies who are in the marketplace who have new products that they're presenting.
Okay.
Right. So, companies like Sherwin-Williams, James Hardy, companies like that, if they have a new or revised product, they'll get to feature it at the new product zone.
Okay. And that's a collection of multiple companies. How many companies will be appearing in the new product
Between
zone?
75 and 80.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a lot.
It's great. It's a great collection.
And that is also in the West Hall, or where's that?
That is in the Central Hall.
Central
That is
Hall.
in C1260.
Okay.
Prime location, very easy to find.
And I remember from last year, this was the most popular spot.
Yeah. So in our post-show attendee survey, it came up as the number one, the most valuable show floor feature that attendees wanted to see. So it really kind of, we built momentum with it over the last 4 years. So it took 4 years. And, in 2023, we had 6,000 people go through. And then in 2024, we had 10,000 people.
Wow. Yeah.
So people are really kind of, using that as a place to start. Like, hey, let me see what all the, some of the new products and services are. They go through the zone real quick and they can decide, okay, there's about 5 or 6 of these products I want to go see. They take down, the booth number, and then they, go to the booth and talk to the exhibitors more about the product and decide if it's something they want to, purchase or include as part of their build. So that's great.
That's cool. And I think that, that's part of the reason we started this podcast is we know there are these different places on the floor or different aspects of the show that people just don't even know exist. So we want to make sure everybody makes good use of their time when they're there. And does the new product zone have a happy hour?
It does not.
Okay.
Sorry about
Maybe
that.
for next
It doesn't.
year.
Maybe next time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That. If you're writing in your attendee survey, maybe a new product zone happy hour.
Right.
I think these are great tips. Is there anything else you think people should know, or do you think this kind of covers it for those two areas?
I mean, we think between those two areas of the show floor, you're really getting an idea of what the latest innovations in home construction are. I mean, like we said, it's very easy. You've got 19 companies, right, in the startup zone, about 75, 80 in the new product zone. And then you'll get a really good handle on what's out there and what's new within the market.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you remember what won most innovative last year in the startup zone? Do you guys remember?
I believe it was an installation company called Timber Tech out of Maine.
Okay.
Yes.
My memory serves me correctly.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
We'll double check that. All right. The other thing I wanted to ask you, because next week, it's crazy, but it's next week.
We're on the road, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So when do you guys leave for the show?
I go up Friday morning, the 21st.
Okay. That's when I leave.
On
When
the
do you?
DCA.
On Saturday.
Saturday.
Morning. Yeah.
Yes, we will be on the same flight. So do you have any tips for people who are attending the show for the first time? You cannot say wear comfortable shoes because that's what everyone says.
All right.
So not comfortable shoes, but do you have any other tip? First time attendee?
Well, the first thing you need to do is download the show app.
Yes.
It's easy. It's comprehensive, and it will show you what's there, how to get around, and
And they could favorite these exhibitors that we're talking about. The
Absolutely.
startup zone and the new product zone are in the app.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My suggestion is sort everything by hall, because the
Okay.
halls are far apart. The West Hall, as you know, in the Central and the North, they're all
Right.
very far apart. So just organize your day by hall,
Right.
right?
That's
Plan to
that's a
spend a
great
half
tip.
a day in the West Hall and then the second half of the day in the South Hall,
Right.
and to use the loop. Use the Tesla loop to get from hall to hall. It is so quick, easy, and convenient.
Right. I
Yeah.
have not done that, but
Oh, you have to.
I've done it like one time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just because I don't think about it. But
Yeah.
I know that is
Yeah.
a great tip.
Yeah.
And you can buy a ticket, I think, for the entire day. So
Well, on campus, you don't need a ticket. So from
Oh.
hall to hall, you don't. But
I
to
didn't know
get
that.
off, yeah. So if you want to
Oh.
go take the loop to the Hilton
Mhm.
and the Conrad Resorts World,
Okay.
you do need to get like a day pass.
But
for
if I'm
that.
just going from south to
Yeah.
west,
Yeah, it's
no
all-
ticket.
it's all free, no
Oh,
ticket.
That might be the tip of the day.
yeah, there might be a bit of a line, but they move very quickly.
Yeah, they move quickly. Yeah. And there are actual drivers in the cars.
Yes,
it's not,
yes, they're
it's
not
not
driverless cars. Yeah.
driverless cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a tip? You said download the app. Anything beyond that? Or is that
just remember that the show is broken up by product segment.
Mhm.
So you can plan if you need to spend the day looking at business services and technology. You can go to the West Hall. If you're interested in building materials, windows, anything that's used to basics of building a house, go to the Central Hall. So we've made it easier for attendees to find what they're looking for.
and that was new last year?
That was new for the 24 show
Right.
last year, and it was very successful.
I think when we went into it, we were kind of wondering how's this going to go. And then when we had the attendee surveys back and the exhibitor surveys,
No,
people really loved
They
it.
really
exhibitors were
liked it,
thrilled.
right?
Yeah.
And
And
we were not
It-
necessarily expecting that.
Right.
it was a big job getting there, but it was well worth it.
And this
People
year
love
it'll
it.
be even more organized because we had a
Yep.
little bit
Mhm.
of like an overflow last year where we kind of had a hodgepodge
Yep.
towards the very, very end. And this year, everyone is in their appropriate space. So yeah, that's a great tip. And if you haven't attended the show as a segmented show, it is
Yep.
much more efficient.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. We
Yeah.
appreciate your time and
Yeah.
your tips.
Thanks
Thanks
for
And
having
Denise.
us.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us on
it.
here.
Yeah.
We look forward
Travels.
to seeing everybody at the
We
show.
look forward to seeing everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah,
Everyone.
it's shaping out to be a really great show.
Yeah.
So we hope we will see you next week in Las Vegas. If you haven't registered, you have plenty of time. You have, I think, today's
I know, what's the
the
exact
12th.
12th or 13th today.
Today's the 13th. You're right.
I
It's
think so.
Galentine's. Happy Galentine's. So you have 11 days. You have plenty of time. You can still get a ticket.
Yep.
And you can register at buildershow.com. Thank you.